we're live here with Sam Royer of Heroes First Home Loans. He's a part of Churchill Mortgage. So thank you so much for coming on today. We're going to talk about all things VA. So if you've never gotten a VA loan, or this is your first time thinking about buying a home and you're a veteran, we're going to talk about the specific steps and just what the VA loan is. So we brought on an expert. Sam's been in the mortgage industry for over 20 years. If you need to know anything about the VA loan, he's your guy to do it. And he's been educating me for the past 5 years, and it's just really helped me learn about a lot of stuff. But instead of hearing it from me, we brought on an expert, Sam Royer. So Sam, thank you so much for coming on today.
Thanks for having me, Eric.
Yeah, man.
Sorry if I sound like a little raspy. I'm getting over having a sore throat. So.
Oh, really? Oh my gosh. Yeah, there's all kinds of stuff going on right now.
It's all the allergies, man. We're in Florida. Everything's open and the pollen is flying. So
I think last week we had all that pine pollen coming out. It was crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, my whole backyard was covered in pine pollen. I was
Yeah,
oh my gosh, it's nasty.
So let's talk VA, man. Number one, thanks for your service in the Navy.
Hey, appreciate it. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Am I allowed to call you a fly boy since you flew?
I guess.
I'm just kidding.
You were in the Marine Corps, right?
I was, and I have a pen. I don't have any crayons though.
Oh my gosh.
But
what'd you do in the Marine Corps?
I was a grunt. That's why we use crayons and pictures. So actually, crayons never worked, man. They always went bad. So
you always melted on the field, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
How long ago were you in?
Long time, man. I'm 45 now. I've been doing mortgages for 24 years now, and I'm lucky enough. Both of us are lucky enough to still work, within the military without our uniforms anymore. So that's what's cool about what we get to do. So
yeah, it still gets work
let's
out.
Jump in. VA.
Yeah, let's do it. VA. So how do I get a VA loan? What do I need to do?
You call Sam.
To go online?
Boom.
Call Sam.
Done. No. So basically, VA is for anybody that is serving or has served in the military. There's certain requirements as far as, your time in service and things like that. But VA is basically the best financing out there. If you've served our country, it's one of the things that a lot of, you have a benefit. A lot of people I work with, a lot of Vietnam veterans actually don't even know they have a VA benefit to buy a home. So it's really cool when we get people like that they don't even know they have the benefit. But yeah, that's the basics of a VA loan in the beginning.
So do I need to go to the VA's website and say I want a VA loan? Do they give me the VA loan?
Yeah, so VA actually doesn't give a loan. VA insures the mortgage for the lender. So you can go to basically all the different banking institutions, mortgage lenders in the country. And if they're VA approved, all that means is that, just like Eric, if I gave you and Katie a mortgage, literally what would happen is the VA would securitize, or not, they would back that mortgage in the event that something happened with you and Katie where, you walked away from your home.
Okay. So the VA is actually not giving me the loan. They're just insuring that loan. Okay.
Yeah. So just like if you call the 800 number for VA, they're going to say, just call a VA lender. So that's basically what they tell you.
Awesome. So VA lenders, they're we're going to start talking about that. Is there specific qualifications to get a VA loan?
There's not. It seems like everybody's a VA expert anymore. So it's kind of funny. Just go on Facebook, type in VA, and you'll have 19,286 ads within 3 seconds. So, VA is actually one of the easiest loans to do in the country. And what I mean by easiest, VA is very good about trying to get the veteran or the military member into the home. They are not trying to preclude somebody. VA actually came about in 1944 under an act called the Servicemen's Readjustment Act. If you look up the history of the Servicemen's Readjustment Act, it actually was a healthcare bill that the VA was trying to build hospitals for all the World War II veterans coming back from war and really having, a lot of struggles. Well, somehow some congressman or senator slipped in, this home ownership part of it. And that's basically how the VA home loan came about. Since its inception, now over 75 years, they've helped over 20 million veteran and military members, through the country. And again, the VA didn't help it. It was all the lenders in the country, but the VA, backs those individuals buying a home.
Mm-hmm. So as we start getting into that, who qualifies, and you can type in all that stuff. But before I type in that stuff, I'm kind of starting to do my research and I'm looking all over online. And like you said, there's a million different answers out there. If I
Yeah.
wanted to know what like my minimum credit score was for a VA loan, is there such thing, or is it just all lender dependent? How does that work?
Well, that's an interesting question because VA actually doesn't dictate what a credit score can be as far as a lender being able to lend to you. However, note, note, right? Basically, every lender in the country right now has credit requirements, and the credit requirements kind of trump what VA says. So VA might say we don't need a credit score, but lending institutions, because at the end of the day, there's investors that buy these mortgages that lenders do. They say, look, we're only going to lend up, to a certain credit score. Now, right now, I know for us personally, our minimum credit score is a 620. Now, I've started to see some lenders coming out where they're saying 600 and 580. And I can tell you on the secondary market where mortgages move, basically that is a very unsecuritized loan that people really aren't buying right now. So a lot of lenders are sticking to that 620, 640 realm. We're at 620, so we're pretty happy to be there. But, do I see things tight or loosening up? Possibly over time, but right now I think 620 is going to be around for a while.
So what happens, like, let's say, so you're dealing with 620 people with 800. Is there like a sweet spot for a credit score that like, hey, at X amount, X number, I'm like maxed out my lowest interest rate, I can be qualified, or is there more stuff tied into that?
Yeah, VA is kind of cool. They're not as strict on, and when I say strict, they're not as credit driven as like Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac for a conventional loan. So, 640 and under, you're going to get hit a little bit with rate or fee basis, but 640 to 700, I mean, you're going to pretty much get the standard interest rate. 700 and above, it might be a little bit different, but VA isn't as critical. Whereas on a conventional side, every 5 to 10 points could make a difference in your interest rate.
Oh,
So
no kidding.
that's the one cool thing about VA is that normally if lender A is, 2.5 rate or 3% rate, lender B or C should probably be roughly the same.
Okay. I didn't know that. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Now, how many times can I use my VA loan? Is it like a one and done, or am I, is like, can I use it multiple times, or can I have multiple VA loans out?
Yeah. So basically, if you, Eric, and Katie wanted to go buy a house, you can buy a house. If your credit score is under 700, right, you can get up to $1 million. A lot of people don't know that, but VA
Wait,
lifted
the
its
VA loan
limits.
will loan me up to $1 million?
If your credit score is under 700, the maximum, as far as our lending institution can go, is $1 million. If your credit score is 701 and above, we can actually go up to $1.5 million, right?
What?
Now, here's the thing. That's just called, it's a guideline. It's basically your limit, right? Now, you still have to qualify. You still have to be able to pay it back. You still have to have obviously credit, like with those credit scores, you're pretty good. You have to have the ability to repay, it's called. And the ability to repay, that term came out mostly in the later 2000s under the Frank Dodd Act. But literally, there's no limit to VA right now as far as lending up other than up to those points. So, a lot of people, there's a thing called jumbo financing. Jumbo financing is a lot harder to get in, I don't want to say the real world, but in the conventional world, where a veteran can go buy an $800,000 house if they can afford it monthly with no money down, no monthly mortgage insurance. If they have a service connected disability, there's no funding fee. It is literally the best financing ever in the world. So
That's crazy. So we're
I don't know
talking
if I can
about,
put an exclamation point on that or not, but
I think
that's,
we'll try to do something posted video, but man, so
yeah.
up, just to recap, you're saying if I have a credit score of 700 or 700 and below, I can qualify up to 1 million if everything else, debt to income ratio,
You
ability to pay back.
literally, Eric, just recently I gave a guy that had a 662, I think, credit score, a $980,000 loan. And his rate at the time, now rates have changed a little bit, but at the time, his rate was like 2.75. So you're lending almost $1 million and the rate's that much. It's basically free money. So it's one
Absolutely.
of those things. I know there's APR disclaimers. Like I think his APR was 2.98, if I remember correctly. And I know I have to put NMLS number 525750 so nobody can sue me, but or our company is 1591. Either way, all those disclaimers, those are for example sakes as far as what the VA can do, because a lot of people don't know the VA actually allows up to that. So, and
I
that's
had no
just
clue.
happened since 2020. So 2020, that's when they lifted the cap. The cap used to be whatever the Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac
Conforming
limits
loan limits,
were.
right? Yeah.
Yeah. Now let's go back. So where I have a VA loan right now, right?
Okay.
You asked a question about can you get a secondary VA loan?
Right.
Now, if I wanted to go get a secondary VA loan, if I borrowed, let's say I owed $250,000 right now, there is a cap to the secondary loan I can get. And there's also rules that apply to that. So let's use an example. You and I used to be single military guys, right? So if we bought our first house VA and it was a 2-bedroom place and it was just because we just wanted to have our own house. Now you meet Katie. You and Katie decide to get married. You and Katie then have a couple kids. Now, obviously, you can't live in a 2-bedroom place anymore. So the VA, even though you have a VA on that home, and let's say you want to go buy a home 5 miles down the road and you want to use the remainder of your VA eligibility, you can do that. That is a legitimate thing that the VA will allow you to do. Now, backing up, let's say Eric is still a single guy. He's a 2-bedroom house, and Eric says, I'm going to go buy another house 5 miles down the road, but nothing's really changed in Eric's world. No family, no there's no growth, right? The VA is not going to be really cool with that. They're not going to look at that as your family moving. Now, the other thing, let's say you work with a lot of sailors. If a sailor is going from San Diego to Jacksonville, right? If they have a VA home loan in San Diego, and let's say because it's California, let's say that VA home loan is $500,000. If they move to Jacksonville, they're not going to have any eligibility left to get a home in Jacksonville. However, I've had sailors where they'd refinance their house in California to a conventional or Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac financing, and they literally could buy up to $1 million to $1.5 million home in Jacksonville, then using their VA again. So you can use it more than once. So yeah, there's a lot of people think VA is just a once and done thing. It's really not.
Okay. I'm glad you're bringing this stuff up because I know a lot of times when we'll look at it, and I'm sure we can talk about this in a bit, but when somebody looks to see how much eligibility they have left, they go to what's it, ebenefits.gov, and then they can pull out their certificate of eligibility, correct?
Yeah, and we actually can get their certificate, and then there's an Excel sheet that we use that what the certificate does, the certificate tells us how much eligibility they've used. Now, we do a calculation then that then tells us how much eligibility they have left. Now, here's the other thing, and I know this is really so. Listen to everybody that's listening. The reason you want to call me is because this is a lot of calculated stuff that it seems like it's rocket science. It's not, but I do it every day. And it takes me about 3 seconds to figure it out for you. But as a different example, let's say that somebody only has $300,000 in eligibility, but they want to buy a $350,000 house, right? The VA will actually allow you to borrow and get another VA home loan in certain circumstances. The only difference is the difference from the eligibility up to 300,000 up to that 350 purchase price, that $50,000, you have to put a little bit of money down just off that $50,000, which that's a simple math calculation that I'm using, but there is a more quantifiable calculation that we have to do. So
I guess the gap I'm missing right now is that a second ago you said I can get up to $1 million,
mhm.
but then if I have a $350,000 house in a different place and I'm trying to buy a $300,000 house here, I may not be able to do it. So what's the difference there? Is there like,
So let me
what's the
explain
cap
that.
here eligibility wise? And then how did I get $1 million here?
Because VA truly is geared towards somebody owning one house at a time, they do have those disclaimers that allow you to get a secondary, like I was saying, where you were single and now you got married type of thing. Now, if somebody has no eligibility used, so they have their full eligibility, that's when there's no cap.
Okay.
But if you use any of your eligibility, there is a cap. So as an example, I think you probably have a VA loan. I have a VA loan right now, right?
That's true. Yep.
If I want to go get a second VA loan, I now have a cap. Okay. Because VA really doesn't want you to have two VA loans. However, my house right now, I probably could refinance it into a conventional mortgage. Once my eligibility gets freed up, then my limit is up to that 1 million or 1.5 million, depending on my credit score, and obviously my ability to repay. So I know it can be very confusing to somebody, but that's why they have you and I. They call us, we literally find out the details, and we can give them very, strong information based off their facts.
What's the cap
Excuse me.
for your eligibility? Uh, just is there a number associated with that?
Right now it's, well, for let's say Jacksonville, Florida, it's 548,250. So
542.
548,000 yeah, $548,250.
Okay, so
So,
that's a
and that's
cap.
only if they don't have their full eligibility. If they have their full eligibility, then if as long as they can qualify, depending on their credit score, it could be 1 million to 1.5 million.
Okay, awesome.
So all those
That's
people out there in the world, even real estate agents that are looking for good jumbo financing, if the first question you should ask everybody is, are you a veteran? And if they are, then you follow up to make sure they can qualify for a VA loan. And if so, it's the best financing in the world. So
that's great. So
that's
just
why everybody now, and this is something, disclaimer to everybody out there, I've been doing this 24 years. I am a Marine veteran, and VA is a big part of my heart. Just like Eric's a Navy veteran, he sells to a lot of veterans and military members because that's who our heart is. We signed on the dotted line years ago, and we still continue to serve. There's so many people that put a little tagline to say we're military this or military that, and even have little initials next to their name. I can tell you 100%, I've been doing this long enough now, I can say this with confidence. You need to make sure the person knows how to do the job. And I say that because I work with so many veterans that have been hurt by companies. Now, our company name is Heroes First at Churchill. Heroes First is who we truly serve. We are very dedicated to those that serve in our community and country. A lot of people use the veteran term or military term to try and lure people in the door. You need to really find out their credentials and who they are and who they've served in the past, because the last thing you want to do is get hurt. One simple thing, childcare. I'm going into credit qualifying in a way.
yeah, let's do it.
Childcare is a big part of everybody's life. I have 5 children now, but I used to have 2 on my own. I used to pay over $1,000 a month in childcare. VA is the only loan that they will actually take childcare into account. So if you have a childcare expense, that goes against your debt ratio. Now, do you know how many VA experts don't ask that question up front? And then they tell Eric, hey, Eric, this military member can get a $400,000 house. Now Eric drives them around. This young husband and wife with 2 kids finds the house of their dream. And here those 2 little kids happen to be 1 and 2 years old, and both parents work. Now, a question I should have said is, hey guys, who pays for childcare? I didn't ask. Let's pretend I didn't ask that. Now, all of a sudden, they pay $1,200 a month in childcare. Now I have to call Eric, and I have to call this military member and his wife or husband and say, hey guys, you only qualify for $225,000. Now, how does that make you feel? So the most important thing, guys, is really, and it might not be me, it might not be Eric, find somebody that truly has walked the walk. One of the simplest questions that a lot of people miss: if you have a service-connected disability or you have a Purple Heart, that's a new one. If you have a Purple Heart, because there's a lot of military members that are still serving that will have a service-connected disability when they get out, but because they're still on active duty, they can't get a VA disability, right? But if they have a Purple Heart, they don't have a funding fee anymore. That's something that just came out in 2020 as well. So that's a very important point for any military member. As much as we wish you never had a Purple Heart, we appreciate your service and what you did. The fact that you do have one now, you need to get that benefit of not having the funding fee.
Right. That's great. That's good information. When you're talking about service-connected disability, is there a certain rating or percentage that you need to have in order not to have the funding fee?
No, normally, I mean, some people say 10%. I mean, really the minimum you normally can get is 10%, but as long as you have one, then it's waived. And that's waived even if you refinance and you're pulling money out. I mean, you literally, that's why I'm saying it's free money. I mean, it's crazy that benefit is the way it is, but it's great that it is too.
That's awesome. So we did a lot of stuff on the qualification process, just kind of getting upfront with the VA loan, talked about the loan limits. But another question that we get a lot of time is like, what kind of property can I buy with the VA loan? I know we had talked about the VA wants you to have a like just a house, like the one you're going to live in. But can I buy like a? Oh, hey,
I
buddy,
got my
who's
assistant
that?
climbing up on me here.
Who's that?
This is Layla.
Hey, Layla.
She's my new pit
Oh,
bull. She's only 4.5 months old and she's huge.
oh, she's so
So,
sweet.
yeah.
Hi, Layla. So is there like, can I buy land on a with the VA loan, or do
So
I have to
land
have
is
my house?
real. To answer your question directly, land's tough. Like VA doesn't lend on land. VA lends on residential properties. You can buy a 1 to 4 unit property with VA as long as you're going to live there. You can buy a condo with VA, which it's a little more difficult because it has to be an approved condo for VA. You can buy a planned unit development or a home in an association. So VA really doesn't have even manufactured homes. You can buy a VA home, or you can buy a home that's manufactured as long as there's certain qualifying factors to that home. So really, VA doesn't limit what you can or can't buy as far as housing.
Got it. So like if I buy like, let's say so Eric, 12 years ago, I was smarter then, and I was like, man, I'm going to buy an quote unquote investment property, right? Because if I buy a multi-unit, like let's say a fourplex, you're saying I can buy the fourplex, live in one of the units, and then rent out the other three?
You got it. Yes, you can, because it's an owner occupied property. You're living there.
That's
So
awesome. So that's a good
yeah,
way to use your VA loan up front then in the beginning if you want
very
to.
much, especially if you don't want to live in a barracks and you got a bunch of other buddies, have them pay off your house.
Wow,
So
that's a good
and
gig.
actually, even in California, as much as BAH, now, how do you know if somebody's a VA expert? Ask them if they know what BAH stands for. No, I'm just kidding. But anyway,
Or
so
PCS, right?
yeah, like BAH, right? I mean, BAH in California is pretty high, but the fact is that you get a couple buddies, you buy $1 million home practically, and have them live in the other part. I mean, granted, you have what happens if they get deployed or something, but I mean, there's so many positives about the VA, and the problem is that because of all the marketing and look, there's freaking a million commercials. I sit here, I have the news on a million commercials of predatory lenders that they just go after veterans because the VA loan, here's all honesty, the VA loan is one of the most profitable loans for mortgage companies, and it's one of the easiest. So the fact is that of course any company is going to utilize it, but some people just take advantage. Like we don't charge any fees, right? Zero fees to anybody that served in our country or community, actually. But there's a lot of companies that charge fees to get a VA home loan. Well, you're serving your country. Like, why should I charge you anything junk wise? Processing, underwriting, things like that. There's no reason. So just things like that you want to
So,
watch out
so
for.
can we talk about those fees a little bit? Because I know, like, a lot of times we'll be working with folks, and they got pre-qualified with some of the big internet companies that, like, you go in there
Yeah.
and you type in, like, I'm gonna get a VA loan. So, some of these companies that start with like veterans or something like that,
Yeah.
they, they'll get you going real quick. They got me going real quick, back in the day. But
Yeah.
when they start getting their good faith estimate or their closing disclosure, whatever it is, their loan estimate, they've got a bunch of fees in there. And then I have that conversation with them like, hey, these fees are kind of garbage fees. You should compare
Yeah.
another lender and compare apples to apples. Now, what are those fees that they should be looking for that are garbage and ones that are like, no kidding, yeah, all of us are going to charge this?
Yeah, so basically processing, underwriting, any kind of like origination fee. Now, here's the thing. There is a cost to do business, right? We have to pay a processor, we have to pay an underwriter, things of that nature. But the fact of the matter is that there's enough profitability in a loan, especially if you're good at your job and you do a lot of loans. Like we're fortunate to serve a lot of people. You're going to make money as a company, right? So why do you need to charge, a veteran? Why do I have to charge Eric $1,000, right? Just so that I can make more profitability so I can run my company. Yeah, it's smart for investors, but the fact is, if you do a good job, the money's going to come to you, right? So those fees, if you see those, it should be a big zero. Zero is an easy number to remember. It's round or it could be egg shaped, but that's what it really should be. The only way that you should ever be paying like origination or discount fees is if you're buying your rate down. Now, what do I mean by that? if the average rate, if you call 3 of the major lenders and their average rate is 3%, if you want to get a 2.5, you're going to pay to buy it down. That's legitimate. But if you're paying, if everybody's 3%, but you're paying $1,000 or 15 or $2,000, that's not legitimate. And that's where you and I try and protect the people we work with. And look, some people might not like me. They might not like I have a blue shirt on, and that's okay. But I still serve people. So if you have something from somebody else, send it to us. We'll say, look, this is not right. I had this kind of a funny story. I had a gentleman that actually ran a police department. He called me. He was ready to close in 2 days on his loan, and it wasn't VA, but it still was a loan. And I'll never forget. I thought to myself, I knew this person pretty well, but they didn't think that I could do their mortgage for some reason, or they didn't want to bother me. And it was kind of a joke, so I let it go. But he said to me, he said, Sam, they're charging me all these fees. I said, listen, Chief, I said, go ahead and give them a call and tell them that we're going to do your mortgage and see what happens to your fees. He calls me like a couple days later, Sam, I don't know how you did it, but they knocked off all their fees. I said, Chief, because they shouldn't have charged you that in the first place. And I said, I guess I'm a good competitor of theirs. But the fact is, Chief, you serve now. He serves in law enforcement. I said, there's no reason you should be paying fees. You're a cop. You put your life on the line every day. You wear a bulletproof vest and a gun. We're not going to charge you junk fees. So next time, give me a call. I'll do your mortgage. Sam, you could have done that. Yeah. So anyway, but at the end of the day, there should be no junk fees associated. And there are more companies that are starting to market that, but you also have to watch too. You want to make sure the company's not jacking up their interest rate just to make that profitability they're losing. So
it's just kind of like behind the scenes, they're tucking in the fees, they're rolling them in anyway with the higher interest rate. Yeah, I've seen that. Talking about like rolling in stuff, can you roll in your closing costs into your loan? I've seen that question a lot because the VA loan,
this is a big one.
Yeah, this is a big one, right?
Because everybody thinks you can just roll it in, right? VA is in the position to allow you to buy your house for 100% of the value that it's there. So if you're buying a house for $200,000, they'll lend you up to $200,000, right? If it costs you $5,000 to get the mortgage, because look, there are fees associated that are legitimate. Title insurance, there's doc stamps, in some states there's transfer taxes. Those things have to be paid. Now, the cool thing about the VA says anybody can pay those pretty much. So like the seller can pay those fees for you. However, this is where a guy like you, Eric, Katie, a good real estate agent has to negotiate that the seller is going to pay that for you. You can't just roll it in. So that $200,000 house, you can't just suddenly borrow $205,000. The VA does not allow that. So that is one that a lot of people, they're like, but they said I could just buy a house and I don't need any money. You actually do need money, but a lot of times it can be negotiated. Now, the market right now, so we're talking, today is February 25th, 2021. The market is crazy. So veterans, military members, it is harder to have the seller pay a lot of those costs, right? And it doesn't matter if you are like Eric, one of the best real estate agents out there that has a big heart for people, or, you're just a magnificent realtor. It's just hard, right, to ask the seller to pay a lot of closing costs. So the VA does allow you can get gifts. You can actually, if you have a paid off car, which we don't really recommend, we don't want you to go into more debt, but if you have a paid off asset or you have an asset that you can borrow from, there are so many ways to get money for a VA home loan to use foreclosing. I mean, it's pretty endless.
So just to recap, you can't just roll in your closing costs. There's no way to do that.
Can't just throw them in. Yeah,
was there a point in time back in the day that people could roll in closing costs? Because it seems to be a very common question. And so like it's almost tribal knowledge that this happens.
I think what people used to do, which I'm not going to say it doesn't happen anymore. So that $200,000 house, if the appraisal came in at 210, then a lot of times they would just make the sales price 210 and the seller would give that extra money back. However, I've seen the opposite happen where a seller will find out their house over appraised and the seller will be like, forget it, I'm not selling you the house because they just lost it. I literally just looked at an appraisal before we got on here. The person bought the house for $275. We got the appraisal back for $298. So that's an automatic $23,000 the buyer just made. But I told them, don't tell the seller it came in for that much, because they might say that's a lot of money. They're going to walk. So,
Woo, man.
yeah.
Yeah. I don't want to know that news either.
Yeah.
Knowing that my
So,
comps are off.
yeah.
Um, so I want to talk about maybe, and we won't take too much time on this, but like the bad side of the VA, and not the VA loan, just home ownership. And like, let's just say things happen in the
Yeah.
future, or like, just life happens and you just can't pay your bills, COVID, things like that happen. And we go into a foreclosure.
Yeah.
Now, if I have a foreclosure on my VA home loan and, I get my life back together, get a steady job and I clean up my credit, am I still able to use my VA loan again?
So, depending on the loss that happened with your first VA loan, there is a possibility you can get a second VA loan. You just might not have as much eligibility. So, like as an example, remember we talked about $1 million, $1.5 million? Well, let's say that you lost, let's say you had a house in Arkansas that was $100,000 and you lost it to foreclosure. It's most likely that you still have about $400,000 to $450,000 in eligibility left that you possibly could get a new VA loan, right? Now, you can't get the full 548 because you already have eligibility, it's used up. But to answer your question directly, yes, you possibly can, as long as your credit's cleared up. There is a 2-year history that has to surpass after foreclosure. The same thing with the bankruptcy, which the VA is the most lenient with that with regard to bankruptcies and foreclosures. Like FHA is longer. Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac is much longer. So VA is actually the leanest on that rule.
So what you said was after 2 years of my foreclosure, as long as I'm back in good credit standing and I can demonstrate the ability to repay, then I can potentially receive a loan for my remaining amount of eligibility. Is that what you
Yes,
said?
sir. You can
Awesome.
do
So,
that. And here's one big one. So I had a veteran. He lost his house in 2010. So 10 years ago. However, that bank didn't transfer the deed to that house until 2019. It took that bank 9 years to actually get the property. So here, there's a question on our application about foreclosures and bankruptcies. Well, he was well outside answering yes to that question. Did he ever had a foreclosure? Well, we found out, because every lender will always find everything out, that he had a foreclosure. Then when we pulled the foreclosure deed, it happened less than 2 years. That guy couldn't get a VA loan for about 8 months.
oh my gosh.
So, number
Oh,
one point to that, if you did unfortunately have a foreclosure, the deed transfer date of that foreclosure is technically when the 2-year period starts. So
that's like super technical. And then just talk to somebody like Sam over at Heroes First to learn more about that, really.
yep.
He'll hook you up. Another one we get, and this is pretty routine, is that people are transitioning in the military. Like, hey, I'm going to go get my GI Bill. I'm going to go get my degree.
Yep.
And so I'm getting a stipend from the GI Bill, and I'm going to go ahead and buy a home with my VA loan eligibility. Can I use my GI Bill stipend without a job?
No.
Oh,
That was an easy answer. So yeah, you can't use your educational benefits for buying a home. So
okay.
now, if you have a disability, you're getting disability compensation, whole different story. If you have retirement, we can use that. However, school entitlement is not like normally a lot of people getting out. They have 3 years of housing they get. We can't use that because VA and actually most mortgage programs, they look at 3 years. They want to see that you have the ability to stay where you're at for at least 3 years. As an example, child support, right, which falls under VA. If somebody has child support, and let's say that child is 16 years old, well, most of the time, child support stops at 18. We can't use that income. So going back to the school situation, normally you get 3 years of housing, but after that first month, now you have 2 years and 11 months left. That doesn't quantify VA's 3-year requirement.
So what if I'm getting out of the service, out of the military? Let's say let's say we got over a year left on my contract. With this, can I still buy a home, or do I have to wait till I get out of the military and get a job, or can I buy a home?
So
I mean,
I'm
I
going to
don't know.
hit you with a question. Why did you
Yeah,
say a year?
because a lot of people start transitioning in a year and they get, the contracts.
It was a joke. So the
Oh,
year mark, right? If you have 11 months and 28 days left, I can't give you a mortgage. If you have 12 months and 28 days left, I can give you a mortgage. So a
oh,
year. If you
a
were
year.
under, well, and you still have to qualify, but if you are under a year for your EAS, end of active service, then technically you have to have future employment. We have to show everything as far as job offer, acceptance, things of that nature. If you have more than a year from your EAS, then yes, you can actually get a VA home loan.
Because I heard recently somebody was like right at that year mark, and then they needed to submit like a letter of intent. Can you
So
talk about
that's
that?
something different. So
Okay.
that's if you are going to re-enlist, then you need a letter of intent, and you also need something from your command stating that you are able to re-enlist.
Okay. And so is that like at the 12 months, 28 days mark, or is that like when does that letter of intent happen? When do you need
If
that?
you're under a year in your EAS and you call me and say, "Hey Sam, I want to buy a house," and I look at your LES, that's your leave and earning statement. If I look at that and I see that you have 10 months left, I'm going to say, "Hey, listen, Eric, are you re-enlisting?" If you say no, then I tell you, "Well, we need your other job that you're going to get." If you say yes, then I say, "Eric, I need a letter of intent and I need a letter from your command stating that you are able to re-enlist, that nothing is hindering you." And
Gotcha.
VA
Okay,
will
that makes
accept that. And that's the thing. That's like the flexibility of VA is even that. In theory, could that guy really walk away 2 months after that and say, "Yeah, forget it, I'm not re-enlisting"? Yeah, in theory they could, but they're giving the benefit of the doubt to the military member, and that's what's so awesome about VA. Even in credit challenges, if you really had a bad credit challenge, there's sometimes we can conquer the 2 year mark if you had a bankruptcy or something. So, like as an example, husband and wife, right? Let's say the wife is the active duty Marine. She goes to Iraq. She gets killed in the line of duty. That was the only income for the husband because the husband was in school, right? The husband, now the wife passed away a year earlier. The husband had credit challenges for a while, had to claim bankruptcy. Is that an extenuating situation that possibly we could get over? You're damn right we can.
that's
So
awesome.
now divorce is not an extenuating circumstance. A lot of people think I went through a horrible divorce. Yeah, that's extenuation is more healthcare, health related issues, things like that.
Hmm. So if going back to that example, that person getting out of that 10 months, let's say they don't intend to re-enlist, but they have a job like offer. Does that job offer have to have a certain amount of time saying, hey, we're going to be making this, you're guaranteed to be paying that, or how does that work? Like,
Yeah, normally we can use that. There's certain criteria that we have to meet. So, like as an example, if that job letter has a lot of different, if you do this, and this, we'll give you a job. Most of the time, those this, and this has to be taken care of. So like a lot of guys get out or girls, they get out and they go to a sheriff's office, right? The sheriff's office will have certain things that have to be required. A lot of times we'll be able to transition it, but a lot of times those things get cleared up first. So,
gotcha.
but it happens all the time. I mean, the VA again is very flexible. Now, the other thing, I always jokingly say this. So I'm a grunt in the Marines. If I become a professional ice skater, do you think that's going to be considered stable employment?
Why not?
Okay. Now I'm a grunt in the Marines. I become a cop.
Yeah,
Pretty
definitely.
stable employment. Yeah.
Yeah.
You have to, there has to be some kind of lineup with regard to what you did in the military to what you're going to do in the future. So you can't, like, if you suddenly become a fully commissioned insurance rep, but in the Marines you flew helicopters, that's kind of a stretch.
Yeah.
But if you flew helicopters and let's say you got out and you started working for Boeing, well, I don't know. Does Boeing make helicopters? I know they make planes.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, well, who's the main helicopter
So we
manufacturer?
it was a Sikorsky aircraft.
Okay. Well, let's
Yeah.
say yeah. So if they went to work for them, that's the same line of work.
Same line of
So
work. Yeah, that makes sense.
yeah.
Man, I think this was great. This is a lot of stuff on the just VA loan. Is there anything that we missed that you want to talk about just in loans in general that are like, hey, there's some common questions that I get that I haven't seen or like I really want to just educate the world on?
I was reading over our question. I think the big one is that, unfortunately, veterans, military members go through a lot of stuff. I mean, we were all young. We signed a piece of paper. We were 18, 17, 18, 19 years old. We went out in town in Jacksonville, North Carolina, and somebody tried to sell you a wedding package that you're never going to use. But, you know, there's credit challenges that happen in the military a lot of times. And the thing is with the VA, if it's explainable, if it's something that really, like if your credit score is a 510, you probably got a lot of work to do before you can have something happen. But if you're right on the edge of certain things, a lot of times things can be explained. I had a military member that got out that he went through a lot of PTSD stuff. He had 100% PTSD. He actually had a couple DUIs. You know, we needed to get a letter from him about what happened, right? And this guy, unfortunately, he didn't really work. He was kind of upset that we asked him for this. But at the end of the day, think about it this way, Eric. Eric, if you're the underwriter at a company and I'm a military member, and actually you're an underwriter, but let's pretend right now you're a judge, and I got in trouble out in town, and I come to you and I say, sir, your honor, unfortunately, I saw a lot of crap over in the war. Please let me go. You're probably going to be like, well, that's great, Marine, but you kind of messed up. Now, if I come to you and I say, your honor, I went through a lot of crap over there. My best friend died. I lost a leg. All these different things happened. Can you please give me a pass on this one? As a judge, the judge is probably going to be like, listen, I'm gonna help you out here, right? And that's even why there's a lot of veteran courts now, right? Well, the fact is, it's kind of the same thing in lending. I had guys that they sent their DD 214, and these people were stacked, man. I mean, you talk about like a 3-page DD 214. This person just really served their country to the extreme. Well, if they had a credit challenge, I'm sure an underwriter's going to look at that a little bit differently. And I'm just saying that from personal experience to somebody that might just come in and say, yeah, I went through a lot of crap. So the VA is one that they're willing to back the lenders. The lenders are willing to back normally the veteran, but it has to make sense, so.
Yeah. Hey, just thought of a question right now. Just because we're talking about, we were shopping earlier with VA loans, and just people initially do their initial Google search and they kind of go there, they get hooked up, then they start going down the process. But like, let's say they want to come to you, or, they came to me and I'm like, hey, you need to talk to Sam over at Heroes First. He's going to beat all those junk fees that we were talking about earlier. He's probably going to beat their interest rate. And he's a great guy. He's super educated on the process. Give him a call and see what he can do. Now, you're talking about earlier about a credit hit. Now, is that, if I go and search you out and do an application, is my credit going to get hit again? Or is there like some type of like, hey, we've heard in the past, it's like a 2-week period. Like if I shop one lender and go and talk to another lender, they won't only register as one hit. Is there truth to that?
Yeah, I've heard it all. I've been to classes that have taught different things. Honestly, I'm just going to be honest. I have no clue what the true, real 100% what happens is, right? I know this. If you go within a week or 2-week period and you check a couple different lenders, it really shouldn't affect you. The credit bureaus are there so that they can tell creditors what you're doing. Credit abuse is where, like, I'm a credit abuser. I'm not going to lie. And I'm being pretty transparent here. I'll shop for a car. I'll get a better credit card, and then I'll go get a motorcycle, right? That's credit abuse, man. That's where you're just shopping to get anything you can. But if you're shopping for a car, let's say in a week period, they're normally not, they shouldn't hit you as much. Now, there will be people that could comment and say, this lender pulled my credit 1,800 times. Yeah, most lenders, like, we pull it once. That's it. Most lenders should only pull once. It's not car shopping. We're pulling it with 20 different people. So if you have challenged credit now, definitely you might not want to have as many people pull it. If you have really good credit, 700, 800 scores, it really shouldn't ding you. And especially if we go back in time when we first talked about interest rates, really your credit score doesn't determine your interest rate that much, other than if you're really like in the 630, 640, 645 area. So
Yeah. Now, okay, so this one, since we're talking about credit scores, what if we
yeah.
go to like Credit Karma and I look and I'm like, I've got a 650, I'm above, that 640, 620 threshold, and they come and talk to you, and all of a sudden you run their credit and you're like, hey, shipmate, you're at a 600. You're like, well, how is it that you're telling me this and Credit Karma is telling me this? How does that work?
So we're going to talk like military guys, right, Eric? So,
Yeah.
so just like Eric, you and I, if we served in the same unit, in the morning, last night, Eric, I went out with Judy and I gave her a kiss goodnight. By the end of the day, Judy and I had a really crazy time and everything bad happened. That's basically what all these credit things are. They're fictitious things that they're close to being right, but they ultimately lead you down the path so they can sell your information to other places and make money, right? Unless you're going to Equifax, TransUnion, Experian directly, not through a credit card that gives you some kind of credit scoring model. You go Equifax, TransUnion, Experian, that's who the lenders use, right? So all these entities that you might have spoken about, they're normally way off where somebody might call me up and say, my blank karma is 660. I pull their credit to 610, right? Or it's a 725, it's a 612 or something. It's just they're not really that stable of
So it's
just
not a reliable source of information, what you're saying.
I could go on and on for this one, but
Okay, I don't want
yeah,
to
well,
fire you
it
up on
stinks
that.
because it really
Yeah,
misleads people.
it
Yeah,
does. So don't listen to them. What you're saying. Talk to
yeah.
you.
What did they say? Karma is a blank.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah,
why did they use that word in the name? But anyway,
yeah. I don't know. Sam, I appreciate it, man. We covered a ton of stuff here. I hope a lot of people learned a lot of stuff from here. Agents, other mortgage
yeah,
lenders, uh,
yeah.
and a consumer that's out there. That if you have any questions specifically to either the real estate side or the mortgage side, Sam here, I'm going to put his information down on the link. Sam Royer with Heroes First, Churchill Mortgage. He's your guy. He can talk to you about anything, everything, all loans related, FHA, conventional, my favorite one, VA loans, and we'll get you down to the ground truth. And if you're shopping for a home here in the Jacksonville area, we'll definitely help you out. And if you've got a lender that you're just not too confident in, I'm going to give you Sam's information. We just had that conversation here. That way he can even just like give you the no kidding
Second
answers. This for
opinion.
legit
I always
second
like second
opinion.
opinions, Eric.
Hey, I mean, for sure, right? I mean,
Yeah,
if you're sick and the doctor tells you X, Y, and Z, you're like, well, uh, let's get a second opinion, right? We're all
yeah.
professionals and we got different educations, different ways, and maybe one professional learns something differently than this other professional. So absolutely get a second opinion. Heck,
Yeah,
get a
and at the
second
end of the
opinion.
day, I'm gonna cut
Yeah,
your thing off. Eric and I, we're very blessed. We've been fortunate. He does great in real estate. I do great in mortgages. At the end of the day, for us, it's about you guys. I mean, I've said no to people. I've said, go somewhere else. I've said, no, you got a great deal. I've said refinancing's huge right now. No, don't refinance. You're going to lose money, right?
you told me
The
that.
fact is, it's just being real. And at the end of
Yeah,
the day, you guys look, Eric can sell a great house. I can do a great mortgage. You and your spouse, or maybe it's just you, are going to go in that door and shut the door. And then it's just the two of you or three of you or however many in the family. Do what's best for you. And that's really the key thing about getting financing or buying a house. And we're just fortunate enough to help a lot of cool people, right, Eric?
that's right. Sam, where
Yeah.
can people learn more about you?
Google. No, where can you learn anything, Eric? It's Google. No, just yeah, our heroesfirst.com is the company website. And I mean, honestly, you could just call me. So put the phone number down below and
Yeah,
just give
and
me
if
a
that
call
doesn't work,
and
what's your phone number?
610-703-5626. And yes, I'm from Pennsylvania. So that's why the 610 area code, but I live down in Florida. And we can lend nationwide. I'm licensed in about 15 to 20 states. My team, many of them are licensed in other states, but then Churchill is a family. you know, that we're licensed, I think, in 48 or 49 states. So really, we can help anybody anywhere. So
Gotcha.
yeah.
What about a good
Thanks for
email for
doing
you?
this, Eric.
How about a good email for you, just in case somebody doesn't want to call you?
Sam@heroesfirst.com. And
Perfect.
heroes is HEROES.
Yeah. Don't forget the little E there, right?
Yeah. Now,
All
Eric,
right,
so
Sam.
if I throw out $100 challenge, would you go jump in that pool on video? Because that would be super awesome.
That pool is cold, man.
Yeah. So,
It's
and
Florida,
I'm
but
so
it's still
glad
cold.
Layla got our first experience of video. So
Yeah.
pretty awesome.
Well, I appreciate your time, Sam. I
Yeah.
really
Thanks,
do.
Eric, for
This
doing
has
this.
been great. Yeah, this is
Yeah.
awesome. I think we're going to help a lot of people out. So thank you so much. And
Yeah.
yeah, we'll talk
No
soon.
problem, man.